It's Eve 2020, February. Whoa, Friday. July 24th, 2020. Almost threw us back in time there.
So I don't want to experience what we've had since February, please.
Let's not go back to February. Although there's a lot of things I would do differently if I was thrown back into February. And one of them would not be running to the market and grabbing a bunch of toilet paper for future use. I would not be a hoarder. Okay, let's talk EVE Online. Wow, a lot of stuff has happened on the kill boards for a while, but the big news today is besides the tournament and the wars, both in Providence and in Delve, is the monthly economic report. So we'll have to have a look at that. But first, we'll go through some numbers and check out what's going on. The most violent regions in... Let's try that again. Yeah, the most violent regions in nullsec, or 0.0 security space. Fountain tops the list at 1,081 ships destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
Delve comes in second with 898 ships destroyed, and Aquarius in third, 559 ships destroyed. This is all in the last 24 hours. Also in fourth place is Providence, 502 ships destroyed there. Still a lot of activity in Providence.
That's what happens when you're in the middle of an evac. You get vultures.
Yeah. Most violent systems in nullsec. Let's see what's going on here. So this is interesting. Delve, the system ZXB TAC VC has 136 ships destroyed in the last 3 hours. So something must be going on there. And the new staging ground for the invading forces in Fountain is, they call it Pinky, but it's PNQY-Y.
I've only heard it called PNQY.
Isn't that what I said? PNQY-Y?
You said called it Pinky. I've never heard that.
Oh, that's the locals. The locals call it Pinky.
Okay. The Imperium locals?
Yeah, Bastion. And what do you guys call it? McLeod?
PNQY, because we're not weird.
Yeah, it's if you look at the map of Fountain, it's basically the other end of the pipe coming in from Iridia, and we were staging in the regional gate from Iridia. So basically, we just moved to the other end of the pipe.
Right. So the pipe is starting with D4KU, and it goes up into PNQY. And that goes right to the border with the Pegasus constellation. It's all lit up here. And the Sphinx constellation. So really now, if you have the invading forces in the top of the Wyvern constellation, you're kind of going head to head with each other, right?
To some extent. I mean, we were kind of going up against each other pretty intensely for the last 2-3 weeks. So,
what's it like in the initiative?
It's pretty good. We're still upbeat, you know. Obviously, we're not there, kind of standing on the beach, basically, you know, telling the tsunami wave, you know, come at me, bro, kind of thing.
You're not daring them anymore.
So, like, you know, we're not trying to take on ridiculous situations with what we have. Like, we're picking and choosing our fights, essentially, you know.
Well, you sound upbeat. You sound on your phone, you kind of sound like a leprechaun. But leprechauns are always happy, I think.
I'm tempted to do an impression, but I am not.
Yeah, don't. All right, so you guys are doing okay. Morale is high.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, because it seems like you guys you guys aren't defending everything. You're only defending the things that you want to. I don't even think you're defending things anymore. I think what Initiative is doing is picking opportunities to fight.
Yeah, like, so the reality of the situation is, the aggressors coming in and that have staged in PNQY, like, when they want to form hard, they can form way more than we can, and probably more so than what goons can kind of bring through. And when goons kind of do bring through fleets, they also tend to get hamstrung, on the way into Fountain as well, which does tend to degrade their capability of arriving promptly and arriving sort of intact, kind of thing. So there is that. But the other kind of thing is, obviously, because Panafam can actually vastly outform us, we can't just meet them on an open playing field and brawl with them. It's not viable in any way, shape, or form. So strategically, what we do is we're taking the fights that we can, not every single fight that we have to take.
What's the situation with reinforcements from the south, the Imperium? Well, I guess you have Bastion there.
I mean, the further south towards Delve that we have to restage, if and when that situation occurs, the faster we can get assistance rendered to our spy goons. So it'll be an improving situation in actual fact for us the further south of Fountain we go. At the moment, we're still running fleets from our staging in IGE anyway, and that hasn't changed since the start of this war. So the only thing that's kind of changed is, systems with jump bridges in, whether those jump bridges are functional, and if those jump bridges go to the same locations, or if those locations change. Those are really the only things that change, in a sort of a fluid kind of way.
Yeah. Have you guys stopped all mining and ratting? I'm just trying to tie it into the monthly economic report.
Not so much. We're still keeping ADMs up as best we can with various different ways. Whether it's individuals, whether it's small groups, whether it's large groups. We do I think it's no secret in any way, shape, or form that when an alliance is in, or when an alliance is defending their space for a lengthy campaign, you have to do grouped ADM fleets, which are essentially is group ratting, but you're not ratting for personal income, you're ratting to increase the ADMs in the systems.
Right, for defensive purposes, not to make money right now.
Yeah, but those resources, especially stuff that gets mined out, is always good to transport and build things with. So
yeah. All right, but the takeaway is the beachhead has happened. The Pappy invaders have taken over 2 constellations inside the beginning of Fountain North, and the defenders, the Initiative, have backed up into ITAC-G, I think, right? Something like that.
IGE.
IGE.
Well, that's our staging, but we were using bridges to get much closer to D4K. Now it's a case of it's closer. The line in the sand is closer, so it's easier for us to get to to striking distance from IGE. The only difference, obviously, is now that Panavam has a location inside of northern or sort of mid to northern Fountain.
Mhm.
Like they now have a staging for capitals that basically spans most of Fountain. So, like that's the more critical threat that we now have. That's different to when they were from basing in Hopip.
Well, good. There was some interesting stuff happening. It was decided only a day or two ago where the new staging ground would be for Pappy. And there was some speculation that they would screw it up. They would maybe start to reside in the NPC part of Delve, which would be a huge mistake because it would put them between the Initiative, which would be sitting up north in Fountain, and the Imperium, which could come up through the south of Fountain, and you would be stuck in the middle there. But they didn't do that. They didn't overjump or overextend into Fountain. Instead, they only came in to the end of the areas that they controlled very well. So that was a really smart move. Now, I don't have any information on what they were considering, but I'm just looking at it from the outside. Anyway.
It's interesting that they went to PNQY. I think there was a few people who were wondering whether they were going to whether they're just going to stage one further in, like because even staging in D4KU, you get like decent range for capitals to support your subcaps. So like there was kind of questions as to whether they were going to just stage in D4KU or whether they're going to stage somewhere else. But PNQY is kind of that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Anything going on in Fountain that we should know about?
Today's going to be interesting. There's looks like there's going to be a big form up about 1720, 1730-ish, maybe around about 18.
What's the form up over?
I think some iHub timers coming out. Like I'm fairly certain they're up. I'm fairly certain you can find them on timerboard.net.
We're talking about Providence, right?
Oh no, not Providence in Fountain.
Oh, you're talking about Fountain. Okay. All right. So timers. In Providence, Spod. I think Spod took off. That guy.
I didn't. My push to talk killed itself again.
I like making fun of you. We'll get to Aquarius timers in a minute.
I don't really follow, like, as far as I know, there's no timers or anything like that for the most part. There's a few structures being reinforced. It's just generally the region as a whole is on stasis because of the NIP. As RC as a whole is enforcing that NIP regardless of who you are, as far as I can tell. So even if you're a third party that's not signed up to that deal and you try and take over Solve of, let's say, CVA, for example, they will defend it on CVA's behalf. So you're not going to see too much excitement over there until something major changes.
Yeah. No
Otherwise, yeah, it's fair game on medium structures. So there's loads of like Athanors and stuff like that getting hit. But I don't think there's anything particularly mega noteworthy.
No word on who's moving in, if anyone.
I know people are moving in. I don't know the list of who, though.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. That's all I can tell you. And that's not me keeping it secret. I genuinely don't know who. I just know that some of the space is spoken for.
Yeah. Okay. Let's travel south to Aquarius. There's some stuff's happening in Aquarius. I think they have a bunch of iHubs that are coming out. There's Baker Goran, do you know what's going on in Aquarius?
Yeah. Last night, fleets from PanFam and I I believe Legacy, but I was in the PanFam fleet that went down there, reinforced several constellations worth of iHubs in Aquarius.
Yeah. So iHubs, right? These are the things that are actually
Or
infrastructure hubs.
actually, I don't know if it was TCUs or iHubs since I wasn't paying attention to Entosis, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't both because we were basically out there until the FC were falling asleep.
Let's check timer boards. We'll reduce it to iHubs since that's really what we care about. And yeah, Aquarius. Oof, Aquarius has a bunch. Do you guys see this as a significant move here with all these iHubs being reinforced? These all come out. These are all set to come out over the weekend. So this weekend is going to be huge for do or die for these iHubs here in Aquarius. That's a big iHub party. All belong to United Earth Directorate. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. In a day and a half, we should see a lot of stuff going. Oh, but look here in the Spire. You have 3 Northern Coalition iHubs in Reinforce. This is probably product of counter attacks from either the Initiative or the Imperium as a whole. But a lot of stuff in the... Looks like Fountain and Period Basis has 1, and it has a lot of iHubs. Boy, this weekend, big weekend, I think for iHubs. So look for that. Whew. All right, shall we talk economic news? You guys have anything else on this?
The hot topic of the day is economics.
Is that right? Let's see. The economics work best when you have a comparison. So that's why you have history here. This is production versus destruction that we're looking at. Without a strong comparison for like recent history, you can't really talk about trends or what's making things go up or what's going down. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to deliver any insight here without thoroughly going through it, comparing it with the last few months, and then thinking about what big events have happened. We will easily, next month, we will easily be able to see the difference between non-war and war economies. Because this measures June. The war started in July. So we can compare those, but we have to wait for that second report to come out, so that'll be next month.
You can see at the end of the graph there, you can already start to see bits and pieces of changes there. It looks like it goes all the way through June and into early to mid-July, even to a certain extent. So if you look at the red part of the graph there, you can see that there's actually mid-July, it's starting to, there's a downslope there. So I'll be interested to see what the MER looks like in August to reflect as to whether or not that actually continues to go down or if it's going to bounce like way back up in order to meet the needs of the war economy.
Yeah, so I think let's have a look here. So red is produced, which is crazy. It should be destruction, right? Don't just make it easier.
Yep.
Destruction or destroyed is actually the blue down here. And the yellow is the mined. So I think it's interesting. You have the mining, which sets you up for the production, which sets you up for the destruction. And that's why those are the key indicators. In this month of June, they all kind of fell, especially the produced fell dramatically. And let's see, it fell from probably 1.7 trillion to about 1.25 trillion. So 500 billion it fell, it looks like, from here to here. And then it stabilized for June and July. That's the destruction. The mining rose a little bit, not much. And then June through July, destruction. No, that's, forgive me, I've already screwed that up. So the destroyed is what fell. And the production is what seems steady. That's interesting. Why would, you know what this is? You know what that big bump is there? Let's zoom in on that. This big bump, I think, is Triglavian stuff. That happened in June. Let's see if I can make this work a little better so you can see more. There, now you can see the months. Yeah, I think this is Triglavian stuff between the end of May, peaks in June, and then falls in the middle of June. I think that might have been something there. I mean, that's a significant hike. And the only thing I can think of is the invaded systems started seeing a lot of PvP in HiSec. And then when the war starts, it looks like a lot of activity drops, which is interesting. That's probably all in preparation for the war. So people return to start moving things around. And we don't have the war stats yet. There's a lot of momentum in this war that, at least the Delve War, that is, I mean, the noise that you hear about it, the propaganda, everybody talking about it, all that stuff is pretty high volume. There's a lot of people talking about it. There's a lot of people expressing themselves about it. But the actual conflicts have been not that intense so far. There's a lot of conflicts, interesting conflicts. We don't know the ends to them. So that makes the story interesting because we could be surprised. But the intensity level isn't there yet. There's definitely a lot of fleeting up, but there's not as much engagement. Bonsway, when did the invasions start for system takeovers in HiSec?
You mean the chapter 3 specifically?
Yeah.
That was May 26th or 28th?
Yeah, so we nailed it there. That destruction spike, do you see that on screen there, the blue? I wish I had some tools to really zero in on it.
Yeah, it was either the 26th or the 28th.
But it was mid-May, right?
No, straight up end of May, like right at the end of May.
Yeah, this looks like it reflects it. There's a huge bump, about 500 billion worth of damage. Maybe more, actually. And then that kind of comes down as the war starts to have some momentum. I think that's what that is. Pretty sure. Okay, so that's just the key indicators. Those are all actually apparently slightly down, with the exception of that HiSec activity. What else should we look at? Well, we always look at the total value destroyed by region.
I would be interested to see if they include the total value destroyed in these new these new proving ground filaments, and to see if that's like any measure of indicative measure of activity, and if they ever include that anywhere.
They did actually release some information, not all of it. They showed a graph. I can try to look it up, of like the number of cruisers destroyed.
There, I think that's easy to see.
We're coming up on the end of that event now, right? Should be over here in a few days, I believe.
The 2v2 part.
Yeah.
Looking at total destroyed value by region right now, and the Forge is way over 3 trillion. Lone Trek sits at 200 or 2,400,000,000,000, and then the Citadel sits at 2.2 trillion. And then you have Sinq Liaison and Black Rise and Domain that follow afterwards. That's an incredible amount. Lone Trek, the Forge, Citadel, those top 3, actually it was just considered the top 2, are all merchants and basically city life and EVE Online.
Yeah, I put the image in Twitch chat. Tech 1 cruisers killed in PvP per day.
I don't know where you put that. What channel?
In Twitch chat.
Oh. Oh my God, not that one again. The stonks?
Well, I mean, look at the blue line at the end. That's all I care about.
Yeah. No, I can't unsee what I saw when I first saw that. Yeah, but that's over 6,500. We're talking, these are cruisers? Yeah, T1 cruisers.
Tech 1 cruisers, because that's what the event is about. That's what the current format is. For
yeah, but this is, if you can see, it starts July 11th. That's not going to show up on this MER.
No.
That'll show up next time.
That'll show up on the next one.
Yep. Which is interesting because the war will actually show up on the next one as well.
Isn't it interesting that Dodixie is showing some signs of life again?
Well, Sinq Liaison is 2.2. I mean, it's right there with Citadel, which is crazy. And Black Rise, it actually beat Black Rise. We're looking at this down here. Let's zoom in. But why does Sinq Liaison have a ton of destruction going through it?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I haven't really been paying attention to that.
Right. I mean,
it's kind of been under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, there's something going on there that I'm not familiar with. It could have to do with invasions, but
could be.
Yeah.
I mean, it has almost the same amount of imports as the Forge does, which is essentially Jita.
Let's check Kybernauts and see where the invasions have been. I think these are historical as well. Is there a way to do final luminal? Why not? We'll do final. So Forge, Black Rise, Domain, Forge, Lone Trek, Essence. See, none of these are Sinq Liaison, so... Well, let's see, Fortresses, the equivalents. I think you had one Sinq Liaison that I remember. One Sinq Liaison system. But otherwise, no. Let's go through manually here. There's one.
There's a couple of people in chat who mentioned that maybe it was during the rollover. The destroyed value might have been during the rollover of abandoned structures. Because I know I spent quite a bit of time in Sinq Liaison with a high-sec character. And I know there were structures everywhere. And quite a few of them were low power or haven't been touched in a long time. So Sinq Liaison in general is kind of like a forgotten region, I guess you could say. There's not a whole lot of people who live there regularly unless you're maybe 4 to 5 jumps out from Dodixie.
Wow, it's so weird to hear you say it's forgotten because it was so popular at one point.
Yep.
Well, it looks like just a lot of things are going down there, but this is all probably more recent. Anyway, little mystery there. I have to find out. Thanks for your suggestions. So that's the destruction chart. Mining by region, we kind of want to keep an eye on this because this might change, especially during the war. Clearly, the blue, I think, are the high ones. So in June, well, Sinq Liaison is on this list as well. So maybe there's a lot of mining ships getting destroyed. There was a war against high-sec groups, but I'm not sure if that would account for all that destruction because it's based on value, not just amount of ships, but value. So what are they actually destroying? Okay, looking at mining, total mining value by region. This is for June, and Delve has only 600 billion, which is a lot less than the Forge, which more than doubles it at 1.3 million. Is that much mining going on in the Forge?
There's almost always in some of the outskirts regions, you'll see like 4 to 5 orcas on scan, especially now with the moon mining changes and the changes to how anomalies work in nullsec, making it much less profitable per Rorqual. It is high-sec mining, especially anom mining, has become much more profitable. So there's a lot more people who are doing a lot of AFK mining in high-sec than previous times.
I like seeing Every Shore back on the map. They have 781 billion worth of mining done, and that's more than Delve. Delve used to be the king of mining, at least for nullsec. But you have many people beating Delve in this case. I'm sorry to use Delve as a high watermark, but they were known for their mining at a certain point. But Domain beats them at 1.16 trillion. Metropolis, 1.07 trillion. Lone Trek, 1.043.
Yeah, it looked like the Imperium was doing most of its mining in Fountain last month.
Yeah, because Fountain did more mining than Delve, 630. So, don't know. It could be a combination of...
What does Quirius look like?
Quirius is... Where are you, Quirius? Here. Very, very minimal mining. 230 billion.
Because Imperium often does Swamp Fleet 6.
No, they're way below everybody else. So let's go to the mining map on the bar graph, which is here, mining by region.
So I have to wonder how much of that is attributable to the change to mining anomalies, and the compositions of moon mining materials that you get.
Yeah. We'll have a look at that in just a second, but the top 3 are the Forge is in first place, Domain is in second place, Sinq Liaison is in third place, and now the number of destroyed ships and value in that area starts to make more sense. Metropolis in fourth, Lone Trek in fifth, and then Every Shore in sixth. And then everything after that, actually Every Shore is not on that list. Lone Trek, Metropolis, Sinq Liaison, Domain, those are all way up here with the Forge. After that is a huge drop to Every Shore and the Citadel and Tashmerkan, and yeah. Very interesting. Let's go back to the mining. This is like the top indices, right? So let's look at mining, which is yellow. And we'll try to zoom in over here on the last month. And I'm looking for the anomaly changes. It's been dropping since April. Quite a bit. And actually June is its low point. It actually picks up in July. So you should see more mining happening in July. But this is a low point. And not only is it a low point for the year, it's a low point for each grid. Each grid vertically is 1 month. So, and we're looking at it over here at the end. It is
almost a year's low there. Hasn't been that low since September. What happened in September last year?
Well, September last year was blackout.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but the I think, let me reset the view on this. Yeah, that's not good. Mining hasn't been this low since, yeah, September. You're right. But before that, so this is like blackout levels of mining. That's crazy. But before that, June and the peak of blackout are tied. But before that, mining hadn't been that low since 2017. Since the summer of 2017. 2 years, 3 years. That's nuts. That's good. I think they've dialed back mining the way they wanted to. CCP wants to make minerals harder to get, which makes everything go up in value because minerals build everything. Okay, total NPC bounties. Now, whereas minerals, you're picking up ingredients to build things with and sell them or use them. Bounties are basically income, going out and destroying NPC ships and getting paid for it in ISK. And let's look at what that looks like. Now here, Delve is excelling. They've got over 4 trillion. So they switched from mining to ratting like crazy. They were always big in ratting, but that must be where their focus was. And here, Fountain is doing pretty well too. So Delve does 4 trillion, over 4 trillion in ratting, and Fountain does 2.8 trillion. So competing with them, and actually in first place, is Fraternity Space. Awasa does 4.8 trillion in ratting. And also in the drone regions, you have Cobalt Edge doing 3.7 trillion. I think if you put together Awasa and Cobalt Edge, which is basically Fraternity and Horde Space, they are outperforming Delve and Fountain in June.
Yeah, I think Horde mainly uses Cobalt Edge as a rental space. So that would be heavily crabbed if it's fully rented out.
Yeah. Am I wrong about Awasa? Is Awasa NC space? I think it's...
Awasa is Fraternity's main region.
Awasa is Fraternity's umbrella.
It is, right? Yeah. That's why I'm curious why character 001 is putting a question mark on Awasa is frat space. I think it is. I'm not sure, but it sounds like it is. I'm looking around in this map too, and I'm finding another one to look at is Paragon Falls. This is definitely Horde space, and it's a 2.6 trillion. That's the same as Fountain, pretty much, 2.8 trillion for Fountain. So there's a lot of equivalency in the amount of bounties that are being picked up. And now we have some changes coming that may affect this. They've affected mining already, and I think they being CCP, has changed the rules to affect mining, and it's worked. Now they are changing the rules to affect ratting NPC bounties with the new ESS changes. So we'll see how this looks next month. Well, the war will interrupt a lot of this as well. Let's look at the bar graph for NPCs. Yeah, OASA is way up there.
OASA has the luxury of being on a different time zone than like half of the EVE player base. So they, on top of their no fun allowed, they tight strategy and how they deal with invaders, they are going to be farming the bejesus out of their system. So I'm going to be curious to see how the ESS affects them in terms of their ability, because there's not a whole lot of PvP content that happens in OASA in terms of like EU, US, late US time zone activity. So it'll be interesting to see how it affects them, because if I remember correctly, they said that the way that the changes can happen is that if there's more PvP activity, then the bounty payouts go up, but if it doesn't, then it can go as low as like 50% of the payout, which may end up significantly hurting them.
I'm pasting something in channel. This is a show we did with CCP a few days ago, actually about 11 days ago, 12 days ago. And they talk about the ESS changes. I don't think there's anything written yet about the changes. So no, there is nothing to read yet. I don't think they're published.
Yeah. I would imagine that CCP is going to write the rules in such a way so that it is not able to be abused, so that you don't have to go and sacrifice a frigate every 5 minutes in order to make sure that you maintain 100% efficiency. I'm sure there's going to be some way that they do that in order to prevent abuse.
Do you know how ESS worked before and how some of the changes might affect that?
I have very limited knowledge on ESS other than trolling bots and whenever we rolled our nullsec static. Essentially, the ESS was faction based, so one for each empire of space, and if you plugged in an ESS, it had I believe either a 20 or 30 column warp disruption bubble, and it increased your bounty payouts, I believe, as high as an extra 10%, depending upon how much you ratted. And a portion of that value went into loyalty points for whatever faction it is that you had. I don't know how that's going to translate with there being a static ESS per system. I don't know if it's going to be faction based, where you can pick which one, or even if there isn't a loyalty points payout per that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, what it was before, and this is limited knowledge because I never really used one, but I just read the notes when they came out, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but you would drop this structure, this tiny structure, I think they're called microstructures, and it was like a little generator that would make you more money than if you hadn't dropped it. So you're going around ratting and you're making more money. But the thing is, you're putting that money at risk because somebody else can come and take the money that's inside that structure. So what you were doing was saying, I'm going to risk some winnings while I rat, but those winnings are at risk and they can be taken by somebody else. So the changes are that you won't have to put down a structure, that every system will have a similar situation. I don't know how that's going to work yet, if it's a built-in structure or something like that. But essentially, all ratting will have an element of risk of somebody taking it. So CCP is building that concept out to be all ratting has a degree of risk to it. Somebody may come and take your winnings,
right,
or something like that.
So yeah, actually, with the ESS, when you dropped it, you automatically started to lose out on some of the ticks, because part of your, I think it was, you would get 80% of your payouts, 20% would be set aside and stored in the ESS. And then over time, as the amount stored in the ESS went up, instead of being able to get 100% of the bounties, you would get over 100%, with the risk if people came in and they didn't want to share. Then they would get faction tokens that they'd have to hold to Empire Space to actually liquidate their gainings in actual ISK.
Well, that was another function of it that we didn't talk about, and that is that different people's winnings went into the same pot. Is that right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
Okay, so that's interesting because you're either all in agreement that you're going to split the pot, or you fight
Somebody
over
could
it.
come along and steal it all.
Or you fight each other for it, right? Like
So the way that pockets have been working lately, there's two ways that people have been defending them. First is that there would be like a dedicated clone pod that would sit inside the ESS, and the minute a neutral popped in the system, they would take all the winnings out of the ESS, and then if the pod died, it was, it just respawned right back in the same system. So I know that CCP is taking that ability away from it. And on top of the fact that inside of the static ESS, they're adding it's like an enormous, I think it's like a 70-kilometer radius bubble. You can't micro warp drive out of it. You can't cloak in it. You can't do, I think that's the only two things, is you can't micro warp drive and you can't cloak out of it, which is the two biggest things that would prevent you from getting away from it. So essentially CCP wants people to fight over that
Show yourself.
particular. Yeah, exactly.
Show yourself, fight.
if you want those extra bounty payouts, you have to fight for it, essentially.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's a way of making people spread out, and that's why I think it's going to have an effect on NPC bounties, because people are going to have to spread out in order to accumulate their wealth without having to sacrifice it or risk it. Okay. More on that later when we have more particulars. I think we'll get to the last part here. Oops, I went out too far. Let's see. So, production. Look at that spike. That's Forge. I think this is where they actually take Forge out just so you can see the other guys in competition with one another, because Forge just blows everybody away by by 100%. So
by the magic of Cheetah.
Yeah, everybody produces in Cheetah, where you have all the ingredients that you need to build things. So Delve might produce 14 trillion, which is an enormous amount of production, but Forge is at 27 trillion. So more or less doubles what Delve does. That not really comparable because everybody uses the Forge in the game, but Delve is specific only to the Imperium. So the Imperium's 14 trillion is amazing. How do I climb out of this without... Okay, well, let's go and see if there's a better way to look at that graph, because that's just huge. Well, let's just move to trade. I think the building is a big aspect of EVE Online, and Delve was building like crazy, but now we'll see what that looks like after the war has begun. Okay, market value. Again, the Forge just dwarfs everybody. You can see that blue, light blue there is, let's see what that goes to. Oh yeah, that's like 45. That's 500 trillion probably in trading volume, trading ISK. So that's where CCP just removes it and says, let's just take them off the table. And here you have Domain coming in second, Sinq Liaison in third, followed closely by Delve. Delve is in third place here, but very close to Sinq Liaison.
See, that's crazy that Dodixie is out trading Delve this month. I mean, it's by a small margin, but that's like, that's crazy.
Something's going on in Sinq Liaison that
Yeah. Maybe we'll see a Dodixie revival. I'm kind of excited for that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something going on in Sinq Liaison. Dodixie is the social capital of Sinq Liaison. We'll have to look into that. Then you have, let's see if there's any other surprises here. Not really. Lone Trek. Then you get to Metropolis, and everything else seems to fall in line. But yeah, Sinq Liaison, something's going on there. Okay, I think it is a lot to do with the invasions and people basing out of there. Maybe this Edencom Triglavian faction war actually has something going on as well. Okay. This is something you wanted to talk about, Gagarin, right? The trades in Providence. See if we can zoom in on that. Not the trades, but the imports.
Well, yeah, I don't notice anything really that couldn't be attributed to coincidence, but I think, well, I saw that they were a net importer last month, but because of recent events, I doubt that they will be a net importer again anytime soon.
Yeah, since a lot of them are evacuating, which means their assets are leaving the region, which means it'll be counted as an export, even though people aren't selling it, they're moving it out of the region, and that triggers the export value. So with all that stuff leaving the region, you're going to see net exports from Providence be really high, which will give
I also saw someone wondering about why net exports from Esoteria were so high, and I'd be surprised if the explanation was anything other than moving big stuff out of Esoteria to get into position for the war.
Right, because that happened before July 4th, July 5th. A lot of that would have been moving. And
yeah, they would have been foolish to not get stuff ready before it began.
Yeah, and I think you'll see that extend into July, the early part of July. Because a lot of people weren't fully moved, and may not be yet, but until a week after the war started. Yeah, so I couldn't find it here, but the Citadel, Providence, where is Providence? We'll see what that looks like. Because it's net exports is not sales related, it's more movement of assets. It doesn't really paint an accurate picture. Here's net exports. Yeah, Providence is a net importer here. They're going to be a net exporter next month for sure. All right, looks like the sinks are a lot more under control than they were. I'm sorry, not the sinks, but the faucets. Right? The money coming into the game used to be crazy. It's still high, but it's not as nuts as it was before. So they are slowing down that income.
I wish they gave a direct faucet breakdown. They didn't do it this MER, and I was a little disappointed by that.
Yeah. We'll look deeper into that. All right, looking at some of these last here it is, faucets over time. We'll take a quick look at that. That's worth looking at. So at the very end here, it tells us what they are. So bounties are clearly the highest at 1.8 trillion or 180 trillion. I have to look at that again. It's 1.8 trillion in 1 month. Incursion payouts still doing very well at right around 4 trillion. Then you have insurance, manufacturing, skill purchasing, LP store brokers, and then transaction taxes. Those are taxes collected by players. Those are faucets. Actually, those are faucets. So everything below this line here, these are negatives. Okay, I see. So transaction taxes went up last August. Was that right? Yeah, they doubled the tax rate or something. That really did a number on the tax faucet. Look at that drop. I'm looking at the pink line. It used to be like a negative 4 trillion would leave the game, and it literally dropped to about double that. It resides now at about negative 7 trillion. So that's a huge, huge increase. They also increased broker fees, and you can see that those used to hover around 3 trillion leaving the game. That's money being sucked out of the game. And now, that went as low as 6 trillion. It's back up to about 4 trillion. Still a lot more than it used to be. It used to be 3. As far as bounty prizes, you can see blackout is this giant dip here in the middle. That's when basically everybody stopped ratting because it was too risky. It then recovered right away as soon as blackout left. More or less recovered. Then it actually went up in March, the spring, basically. And then it died down again. I don't know what that dip is. It's like a 1-month dip, really, in May. Trying to think what happened in May. But it's worked its way back up to a pretty healthy level now. Bounty prizes in June and July. We expect that to go down in July because the war started. All those guys that were ratting before will probably get busy. So we'll have to see about that. Yeah, bot bans can account for that. Somebody's asking, what is blackout? I'll just take this real quick. Blackout was CCP taking away the chat that is local, which means you can't see who's in your system. So a lot of people who were ratting weren't able to see who was around them unless they used their scanner, which is not that familiar for people. In nullsec, it was a big deal because a lot of people will rat in safety as they can see on their local chat that nobody's in the system with them, so then they can relax. But as soon as they see someone enter that system, or worse, are alerted by some software when somebody enters the system, they can make themselves safe, and therefore ratting becomes more lucrative. So without that, people were being hunted, and it didn't take long for all the people who were ratting in space to basically dock up and say, I'm going to wait until this thing is gone. So that's what that was. Okay, and we'll get to the end here. Money supply, we just go to velocity. This is how often a coin trades hands, and so this is basically how fast money is moving around. So it denotes activity, all activity. So if people are buying things from each other, that's left and right, money's moving around. If people hold on to things and hoard, then the activity of that money drops, right? Because it's not being used. People aren't selling things because they gave up on a market or whatever. Activity drops. You can see blackout, the economy took a hit, right? That big dip there in the middle, that thing. It recovered. And then a lot of these mining changes have now, over time, diminished it to right around 0.5. I wonder how that's measured. So here it is. Total trade value in the past 30 days divided by total available ISK over the last 30 days. How many times has each ISK exchanged hands on the market on average? So it's at a point, I would say it's basically at a 0.4.5. So I don't know if that's less than 1. If the point is less than 1, I assume it is. 1 is one time that the ISK changed hands. So half the money is changing hands once per day. Or was it per month? Yeah, not sure. That's usually the last one that we go to kind of see what the economy is doing. Let's see if there's one more indices here that we want to see. Usually not down here. These are just different graphic representations of a lot of the same data. This one here, the economic indices full history. this is all of Eve's history. So from 2004 to 2020. And we're looking at consumer price index, the mineral price index, the primary producer index, and the secondary producers index. The primary producer index is people who take minerals and make something. And then there's a secondary producer index, which is people who take the things that were made out of minerals and make more things. So they're different. It's kind of like the specialty items.
Tech 2 items, Tech 3 items is a really good example.
So I think what's interesting here is really over the last, go back to 2005, last 5 years, the secondary market has been on fire. And that has completely come down in the last, since summer, in the last year, it's completely climbed back down to normal levels below the primary index, the T1 market, I guess, and matching the mineral prices. All that is very interesting. So what happened last? It really was the beginning of summer, so it wasn't summer. I think you had the Tribute War, you had Blackout, you had a recovery phase and nerfing going on in the fall and in the spring. So maybe a lot of that affected that secondary market. It's very interesting.
So somebody asked, I don't see wormholes and abyss included in the EMR, or am I missing them? Is there a reason they are not included? So wormholes in particular are not included. That was changed, back in 2016, 2017, they pulled all ESI endpoints from wormholes because the wormhole community as a whole wanted it to be like big, spooky, no information about what's going on in wormholes whatsoever. So normally, this is I had mentioned it earlier, but normally what they do is they will include the faucet breakdown. They'll show you like the only thing that you'll ever see out of that is the faucet breakdown. They'll show you how much blue loot is being sold to NPCs. So unfortunately, we missed that this month. So, but that's essential. I don't know why Abyssal stuff is not included on the EMR. But
now keep in mind the economic report. We're looking at highlight pages that CCP pulls out, but there is a PDF that you can download or a presentation that has twice as many slides, and so you might find more information there. We didn't check out Blue Loot on this one, did we? That's part of the income faucets.
Yeah, that's usually on the faucet breakdown, but it wasn't. They didn't have a slide on faucet breakdown this month, unfortunately. It's normally because Blue Loot is considered to be a commodity. So, when you're looking at the graph there, it could be, 30 trillion in Blue Loot, or it could be 30 trillion in Overseer effects, right? A lot of times it's not, but it's usually a good mix between the two. And it's a good indicator as to how active wormhole space is in general. But unfortunately, didn't get that data.
Yeah, those suffer from taxes as well, which is kind of unfair if you think about it. If you're out killing an NPC ship in low sec or null sec, you get the money directly, and there's no tax that I'm aware of. But if you go into wormholes and you kill sleepers or something and you get blue loot, you have to turn that in order to convert it to money. That conversion can be taxed, and those taxes were raised. So therefore, ratting in wormhole space became a little less desirable than ratting in low sec, for instance.
Well, you're still ratting in wormhole space is still gonna yield you exponentially more money in an exponentially lower amount of time required in order for you to do that. So, and there's also the, most corporations are going to have a bounty payout tax of at least 5 to 10%. So,
is that right?
In a large respect.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, in a large respect, you're still making, a lot more money than what you would be doing. Even carrier ratting out in null. A lot of people are making more money doing that with triple boxing dreads or even single boxing a dread out of your static.
Mm-hmm. Well, if they were 1-to-1 ratio, they're not. You make more money in wormhole space. But the idea is, what I wanted to illustrate was that you get straight money from bounties, but when you have a commodity, you've got to turn the commodity in order to convert it to money.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But when you start factoring in the stuff that you just said, which is, that the corporation taxes you for the bounties you get in low sec, so you're going to get taxed 5%, 10%, 15%.
It's also extremely easy to move those commodities. The NPC orders are spread out, throughout everywhere.
Yeah.
And
and those items are very, very small. They could be transported in small, fast ships that are extremely difficult to catch.
Yeah, you can carry them in a travel scepter easily.
So you can get them to the market, and there's always a market that's buying at a certain rate. So you're at least not subject to market fluctuations.
Yep.
But you are subject to tax fluctuations.
We are also subject to inflation as well. The payouts from these sites haven't changed in, coming on 4 or 5 years now since the last rework.
It's a fixed value.
Yeah.
The overseers effects, the red loot and the blue loot, effectively, the red loot is somewhat variable, but over time it's effectively the same. The drop
rate
does not change.
Well, it's interesting. Again, I'm just illustrating the difference between being paid a bounty straight or having a commodity that you have to pick up and take to the market. But yeah. All right. There's some questions here. Let's see if we can answer them. I don't know if we will be able to. There's a very specific one here. It says, can you explain 365 days of relic drop prices? No.
So I can kind of maybe take a gander at that. Okay. CCP has been doing a really good job at trying to bring new players into the game. And there's a lot of videos out there and information that gets passed on colloquially.
New players are often encouraged to go for relic sites.
Yeah, to go hunt for relic sites for those prices. And salvage, and when you have a whole bunch of new players that are going to be like, oh, yeah, I can go make 120 million ISK per hour by, running these or going and finding these sites and low-class wormholes and NPC space or NPC null, then, I should, that's easy money for me to do. And of course, anytime that you have a large influx of supply, your demand is going to be lowered, and the price point for the stuff that you're trying to sell is also going to be lowered. So that would be my best educated guess as to why that's been dropping, because CCP has been doing a really good job of trying to bring in new players into the game, and new players are going to try to branch out and try to expand their skill set and everything else like that. And that's one of the first things that people get themselves into.
Here's some answers from your fellow chatters here. 2 reasons. First, loot pinata. Second, yes, new players, easy income. Another answer from, and that was Cat Ziggy. And Jalient says, get to the beginning here. Ore was nerfed. People don't use as many rorquals, so not as many excavators sold, so not as many excavators built, so blue loot prices tank because not many people using blue loot to make excavators.
Blue loot is not made.
Blue loot is just a token. Blue loot is the commodity. It has a fixed value. It's like red loot and overseer's personal effects.
Yeah, he might be that person might be referring to salvage.
Sleeper salvage, yeah.
Sleeper
salvage is only used for Tech 3 production, but I think maybe he was referring to relic sites.
Good evening.
Yeah. Hi, Killaby. Okay, I'm glad you got a good answer out of a combination of guests and the chat. All right, well, that kind of wraps up the MER, unless you guys have anything else.
Not related to the MER. There was an AT ship destroyed yesterday, I saw.
That's right. Actually,
Hydra. He got Von Hold.
Hydra got Von. So
I
let's
actually
go
do want to share a little addendum to the Red Loot thing. So Red Loot is the Draglavian survey database ISK token that drops in Abyss. And since many people will simply sell that directly to player buyers in JITA rather than going to an NPC, players will buy that Red Loot for below the NPC value and stack it up and then sell it themselves to NPCs and make money for basically nothing.
Okay, thank you. Move on to this kill.
Yeah, I've done with that with Blue Loot as well.
All right, we're going to move on to this kill. It's a Hydra. It's a Hydra class ship. There's also Hydra, the Alliance, but we're not talking about them here. Hydra Covert Ops was destroyed. It's an Alliance tournament ship. It is worth a lot of money. On paper, it's worth 150 billion. And this was destroyed. This one destroyed belonged to Ghost Moon, and he was Von Holden, you say?
Yep.
Oh, Von Hold got one because he missed the last Hydra. That was Sniper Bros.
Yeah.
I figured when I saw Sniper Bros died in the Hydra, I was like, oh, Von Hold must be pissed he missed one.
Yes, with this one, I'd be surprised if the hull was only 150 billion and then everything that can be abyssal rolled was abyssal rolled, and you're not going to put anything but the best abyssal mods on an AT ship.
Yeah,
So,
Alliance tournament ship kill values on Z-Kill are effectively irrelevant since those hulls are essentially priceless. They're limited, they have no calculable value. But Z-Kill has to put a value on it, and they're not going to make it zero. So cruisers, they make 500 billion. Frigates, they make 150 billion.
Yeah. So the 150, that's just on paper, and that's just an estimate. You have two things that are not accounted for. One is, what are people really willing to pay for the hull? But second, all these modules that are put on it are incredibly specialized and unique. Not all of them, but most of them.
Many billions for each module, anywhere from 1 to 20 billion for each module.
if you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Yeah, so this might be 8-9 times the amount that's listed here. It just depends on what people want to pay for it. So
There were reports. So Rengas, an Alliance tournament pilot, flew a Fiend in Abyssal PvP, the original Proving Grounds, and he flew it for a while until it got killed. And after it got killed, there were reports, obviously unsubstantiated reports, that he had spent a grand total of 3 trillion ISK assembling that ship and its modules.
my God. 3 trillion, wow.
Because they were all of the Abyssal rolled modules were officer rolls, and they were excellent rolls. So those were worth many billions apiece.
Total dropped in loot was about 4.2 trillion. I'm sorry, 4.2 billion. But, you know, it's all about the kill. All right. We'll have to go back and look at all the Z kill board that we've missed over the last week, 2 weeks. That's going to be a lot. But we're out of time today. We've been going for a while here. But Killaby kind of snuck in at the end. So Killaby, do you have anything to talk about? Anything to report?
Oh, nothing happened since yesterday.
We saw a lot of Aquarius getting reinforced, a lot of iHubs. What's going on there?
Yeah, Legacy and tested a big push yesterday and got a lot of stuff done. So that's cool. Let's see how much they can follow up on, or maybe they don't follow up on anything, which is fine too. But we'll see what happens there. Certainly creates opportunities for something.
Yeah, I noticed weekend opportunities, right?
Yeah, so we usually try to avoid weekend stuff this war, because weekend everybody, the time zones don't really work anymore at weekends.
because people get up early, stay up late, blah blah blah.
Oh, interesting.
And we like to know, huh?
That's very interesting. I didn't think about that. So you want to work during the weekend so that you can use time zone against people so they can't stay up late.
We want to work during the weekday because we know, and during the weekday we know pretty much exactly what everybody's capable of fielding, whereas on the weekend it's very unpredictable because people play outside of the usual time zones, and that gets, obviously both numbers, like on both sides, are going to be higher. Everybody can pull more people on the weekend, but we're pretty like maxed out in terms of what this, numbers already on the weekdays in terms of tie-dye and stuff. So we're not exactly trying to make any big pushes on weekends at the moment because it's just going to turn into 5,000 people, and nobody wants that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's why we're trying to avoid weekend timers most of the time and try to focus getting stuff done in the during the week.
Well, we'll see. There's a lot of timers coming out in a day and a half, so that's right in the middle of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But I never thought of that. So interesting that you want the main body of the activity to happen when you can predict what the other person is capable of delivering to a battlefield. And the weekends are kind of wild cards.
Yeah, like it's crazy on the weekends sometimes. Like you can expect, like for example, on EU Prime on a weekend, you can easily expect 20-30%, maybe more than that numbers than you usually get because you get all the early US players as well. On the weekdays, they're at work when you ping an EU Prime. When you bring an EU TZ on a weekend, they're at home. It's their afternoon, right? It's their midday or whatever, and they can play. So you get a lot more numbers in EU TZ than from US players, for example. And AUTZ gets late US players and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of blurs into each other on the weekends.
Yeah. All right, I got to take you back to yesterday because somebody said like you were making it sound like you were fighting against the odds yesterday in your Munin fleet. Do you want to explain that fight again? Because it looked like ISK efficiency was against you.
Yeah. So the person's probably referring to like the numbers. If you look at Zkill, then yeah, it was pretty even numbers. But if you just look at the raw hack numbers, it was against the odds. It was like, I think Imperium had 290 hacks. I had 200 hacks-ish. So I was outnumbered by about 90 hacks. That's all that matters. We had like 3 Jackdaw fleets on grid as well, but all of those Jackdaw fleets were like below 100 people. So none of the Jackdaw fleets actually accomplished anything except the warping around on grid and clearing a little bit of tackle. So yeah, that person just looks at, like you go to Zkill and you look at the top and it says like 500 pilots on that side and 500 pilots on that side, but that's not really how numbers work. And Asher, I love Asher's Reddit post because Asher made a post on Reddit after the fight. It was like even numbered fight between Imperium and PanFam and Fountain, and then he went like, I think he said something like, "Oh, whenever it's even numbers, we win." Weird, right? So I kind of chuckle a little bit when I read it. It's fun. It's fine. It's the usual Reddit banter and trying to demoralize enemy FCs or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. So that might be because there was unusual resistance to what you explained, and I didn't think anything of it, but I just wanted to make sure that you were pushed a little bit on your stats, and you were
So again,
questioned.
Numbers like raw numbers in system were pretty even, but hack numbers were quite different. So, and in a hack fight, unfortunately, which is why I don't really like the current meta. Most FCs don't like the current meta. When it comes to hack versus hack fights, it's really almost all about who has more hacks. Even if one hack is technically worse than the other, if you have like 50 more hacks than the opponent, you're very likely to win still, unless you make major mistakes. And that's a bit unfortunate, but it's not like I'm not enjoying like Munins. I do enjoy Munin fleets, but when it's all you do, it starts to get boring. That's like the one thing I'm kind of jealous about the Imperium, because they try out all these different hack fleets. Like Init has Zealots, Init has Ishtars, Goons have Sacrileges as well. Like they try out all these other hacks and try to make them work. And in some cases, they do make them work very well. Those Ishtars didn't perform that bad. They performed a lot better than I thought they would. So it's certainly cool that they try out all these other hacks.
So what sort of meta would you like to see other than the hack meta?
One where not everybody does MWDs, first of all.
Is it a not this, or is it a yes something else?
No, it's made. So I don't have. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, how do you feel about the hack meta, I would have told you that I'm very excited about it because it was new at the time. So the one thing I'm against is leaving a meta in the same place for 2+ years because it just gets stale, it gets boring, right? I would like CCP to do more, faster paced changes to doctrines so that the meta would change every, even if it's a year, I would be fine with that. But we've had the hack meta now for, I think, almost like 20. Was definitely around in 2018, so it's probably like 2 years now, 2.5 years at this point that we have had the hack meta, and I wish they would just change up a bit more often. I don't care, like I will adapt to any meta. I would love to see a battleship meta. I would love to see a battle cruiser meta, even like whatever it is. I don't even mind hacks either. Like if they just make Munins and Eagles really bad and then Zealots and Ishtars become really popular, for example, I would like that too, because it would be a different ship. It would be something else, right? I just want faster paced meta changes. Can't be as fast as it is in like League of Legends, obviously, because of the industry and everything involved. But it could be faster than every 3 years the meta changes.
So you said we've been at the same meta for 2 years? The heavy assault cruiser?
Yeah, I think, sort of, yeah. I mean, there was certainly times when, it was like, wait, what's happening? One sec.
Killer B might be being called to the battlefield since he is a fleet commander for NC Dot. We'll wait in case it's hot news.
Doesn't look like it.
Oh.
Yeah, so what was I saying?
The hack meta has been around for 2 years.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. I remember flying Munins when Goon's Glass Tribute, right? That was last year, I think. 29. Was that 2019 or 20? I can't even remember.
Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was last year. But I also remember doing hacks the year before in Pureblind and Fate, right? So yeah, hacks have been around since 2018, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, it's getting to a point now where I would like to see something else be mainline. And maybe it takes, alliances like Init and Goons, they just try something even though it is sort of off meta and they perform quite well with them. Maybe people will start to realize, oh man, Ishtars might be a really strong doctrine, and then more people do Ishtars and stuff like that. But for NC Dot at the moment, we really only fly Munins, and then very, very rarely we do Eagles because they're pretty strong too, but only versus certain fleets. So it's yeah.
Well, one of the reasons heavy assault cruisers are desirable is they're fast. That's one of their features, which means you can dictate range and you can escape if you need to. And one of the things that Rise said, which was interesting, was they may take a look at speed in general to see if it needs like a rebalance across the board to make decisions. Things that are fast maybe do less damage than things that move around slowly or something.
Yeah, Rise mentioned speed creep being an issue over time. And hacks are very popular because they're effectively the most efficient use of the resources to create the ships. Like those same resources put into any other type of ship would be less effective. You would require more to gain the same effectiveness.
All right, you're a bit quiet there, but I think we got it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, looking at speed, I think is something that's very interesting if that happens in the future. No promises. He's just saying might have to look at it. It's having speed creep issues. All right, cool. It wouldn't be a speed nerf. Not saying it's a speed nerf, Radico. Just saying looking at it because it tends to favor the same ships over and over again. So if you want a diversity of doctrines, you may need to look at not one balanced compared to another, but look at the whole reason why these certain ships are favored all the time. If you think about it, the Macarial was Well, it had a couple things going for it. It was fast, but I think the key feature was it didn't take capacitor to shoot the guns, which meant it was good for destroying structures
Yes.
at range.
And it was good in general when it was a very, when it's generally good for bashing stuff. There's still a place, like, here's the thing, right? Like, there's still a place for battleships. I think that there is strong battleship doctrines at the moment. The problem is in the large 0-0 meta at the moment on a large scale. There's so many things that just completely destroy, because one of the big problems with having a battleship doctrine is they're very slow, very stationary. So you would run, Hordreds can kill you very fast. Just Super Titans, if they're in range, they can kill you really fast. There's so many things that just threaten a battleship fleet so much, bombers as well, and you can't do anything. Once you're pinned down a battleship fleet, there's basically nothing you can do. Whereas in hacks right now, with like Ishtars or Munins, right? You see your opponent jumping in Super Titans. Oh, okay, we just aligned to Sun MWD on, and within 20 seconds, you're going to be off grid, because Munin with links goes like 2,500 meters a second. Yeah, you can always get out when you want to. And it's
It's not just that, it's also the logistical issue, because we're pretty far away from the drone regions, and can you imagine how much the jump freighter people would be having a bad time if they had to bring battleship doctrines out to Iridian Fountain?
Well, to be fair, T1 battleships can be built quite easily. So, like, if I were to decide, NC Dot wanted to do rocks tomorrow, I could have 1,000 rocks built by tomorrow, basically, right? Like, and locally, I could all it really takes is like Raitaru, because they all take 5 hours to build, I think, and then you just bring a bunch of compressed ore and you build them. So battleships, I agree, it would be absolute horror to move them, but you would probably just source them locally, build them locally. That's what we use our forward production facilities for. Usually whenever we stage for war, like any sort of deployment, in our staging system, we do deploy, Raitarus, sometimes even as-builds in those systems to be able to produce ships locally, because moving them is a big pain in the ass.
All right.
Anyways, looks like I have to go.
Good luck out there.
So I'll see you around.
See you around. All right, we're going to take a look at more war activity by rating our friend Ron, USMC. So stick around and watch as he keeps an eye on the Keepstar there. A lot of stuff going on, preparation for this weekend. This weekend should be a lot of things happening, small and large, so we'll see what happens. I want to thank Tiberius, who took off. Thanks for coming by. Wish him all the best. And McLeod, Fonsue, Gregorin, thanks as always, Dutch, and Spod. Thank you guys for coming around. And we will see you. Maybe we'll have a show on Saturday. It depends. We like to do a week in review when we can. If not, we'll see you Sunday on Talking In Stations.